The fluorescent lights hummed above Patricia Moore's head as she wiped the counter of the gas station. The night shift was quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed against your chest. Outside, snow drifted lazily under a street lamp, painting the world in pale silence. Patricia's reflection stared back at her from the glass door, 50 years old, tired eyes. A life paused. She thought she had learned to live without music. But then, the old radio crackled. A soft guitar strum filled the empty store, followed by a voice she knew too well, her own, from another lifetime. The song was from her first record, Before Everything Went Wrong. The sound made her freeze, mop in hand, as her heart stumbled back 25 years. The lyrics floated like ghosts through the aisles. Her chest tightened. She wanted to turn it off but couldn't. The melody carried the scent of smoky bars, cheap whiskey, and dreams that used to mean everything. She had promised herself never to listen again, yet now, every note pulled her toward something she had buried deep. The store phone rang, startling her. She let it ring twice, then 3 times, before answering. A young man asked for gas prices, but she barely heard him. Her mind was miles away in Nashville, under bright lights, wearing a red dress and hope. The memories cut like glass. When the call ended, she leaned on the counter, breathing hard. The song ended too, fading into static. For a long time, she stared at nothing. The air felt heavy, filled with ghosts and unspoken things. Outside, the snow kept falling, erasing the footprints on the ground. She whispered to herself, "That voice isn't mine anymore." But the lie trembled on her lips. The truth was simple and cruel. She missed that voice. She missed the fire, the chaos, the applause. She missed the woman who had once believed she could change the world with a song. Somewhere deep inside, something small began to stir again, like a spark under ashes. Patricia didn't know it yet, but that quiet night in Kansas would be the first note of a song she thought she'd never sing again. The next night began like every other. Patricia poured herself a cup of stale coffee, the smell of gasoline clinging to her hands. The town slept early, and the station glowed alone in the darkness. But her heart felt restless, uneasy, like a radio picking up static from the past. Then, near midnight, her phone rang. The sound cut through the silence, sharp and trembling. Patricia frowned. No one called her this late. She answered with a tired hello. A broken voice came through the line. "Mom, it's me." It was her daughter, Megan. Words tumbled out between sobs, panic attacks, exhaustion, a hospital bed, and then, "I need you to take care of Lily." For a moment, Patricia couldn't breathe. Nashville, the name alone made her knees weak. She hadn't set foot there in 20 years. That city held every ghost she'd spent her life running from. But Megan's voice cracked again, soft and desperate. "Please, Mom, she needs someone." Patricia closed her eyes. There was no choice. She hung up and stared at her trembling hands. The coffee had gone cold. Around her, the hum of the refrigerators sounded louder, almost accusing. She'd built a quiet life of survival, no risks, no stages, no pain, and now life was asking her to step back into the storm she'd barely escaped. When her shift ended, she packed her few things into a suitcase. Each folded shirt felt like a goodbye to safety. Her guitar case stood in the corner, dusty and unopened for decades. She looked at it once, then turned away. Some memories were too sharp to touch. Before dawn, she stood outside the gas station, locking the door behind her for the last time. The sky was dark blue, stretched between night and day. Her breath came out in white clouds. Somewhere out there, Nashville was waiting, loud, bright, and unforgiving. As she started the car, Patricia whispered a prayer she hadn't said in years. The tires rolled over the snow, carrying her toward the past she'd sworn she'd never face again. The highway stretched endless before her, a gray ribbon between yesterday and tomorrow. Patricia drove in silence, her old truck humming beneath her. The miles passed like slow breaths. She had forgotten how it felt to leave everything behind, how fear and freedom could taste the same. The Kansas plains gave way to Tennessee hills. Memories surfaced like ghosts hitchhiking on the roadside. The first time she sang on stage, the record deal that ruined her, the man who called her darling before breaking her heart. Each thought made her grip the wheel tighter. Sometimes she talked to herself just to fill the silence. Sometimes she cried without realizing it. At a rest stop, she watched truckers come and go, faces worn by the road. A woman offered her a coffee, smiling kindly. Patricia thanked her, surprised at the warmth in a stranger's eyes. She hadn't realized how long it had been since someone looked at her with simple kindness. By the second night, the radio became her only companion. Country songs played one after another, some she used to know by heart, Her voice hummed along, shaky at first, then clearer. She caught herself singing, then stopped, ashamed. The sound of her own voice frightened her. Crossing the Tennessee border felt like entering another lifetime. The air was softer, carrying the scent of rain and pine. The skyline of Nashville appeared in the distance, glowing faintly like a memory refusing to die. Patricia's stomach twisted. The lights were beautiful and cruel. She parked outside Megan's small apartment just after midnight. The city sounds music, laughter, sirens wrapped around her. Patricia sat still for a long time, staring at the front door. She wasn't ready, but ready or not, she was here. When she finally stepped out, the cold air bit her cheeks. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Okay, Nashville, let's try this again." Lily didn't look happy to see her. The 12-year-old stood at the doorway, arms crossed, eyes suspicious. Patricia forced a smile, but it faltered. The girl had her mother's fire, her own eyes. Behind her, the apartment smelled of lavender and medicine. Megan's absence heavy in the air. "Hi, sweetheart," Patricia said softly. Lily didn't answer. She turned and walked back inside, leaving the door open. Patricia followed, her suitcase wheels scraping against the floor. The silence between them was sharp, filled with questions neither dared to ask. Patricia tried to make small talk, asked about school, about friends, but every word felt like stepping on glass. Lily shrugged, mumbled short answers, and kept scrolling on her phone. Finally, Patricia sighed and began unpacking. She noticed a photo on the fridge. Majan as a teenager, holding a microphone. Patricia's chest ached. That night, Patricia lay awake on the couch. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. She could hear Lily's soft breathing from the next room. The city outside pulsed with distant music, reminders of who she used to be. Sleep wouldn't come. Guilt, like an old song, played on repeat in her mind. In the morning, Lily left early for school. Patricia stood by the window, watching her walk away. She wondered if there was still time to become someone her granddaughter could trust. The thought scared her more than any stage ever had. Later that day, while running errands, Patricia passed by a bar she used to perform in. The neon sign flickered weakly, but the name was the same. She stopped for a moment, her reflection glowing in the window. Inside, someone was singing, a voice too familiar. Her heart skipped a beat. She didn't go in, but the sound followed her down the street, whispering promises she wasn't ready to believe. The next evening, Patricia drove Lily to a friend's house. On the way back, she took the long route past the old downtown streets she'd once ruled with her songs. The air smelled of fried food and nostalgia. Nashville had changed, but the heartbeat of music was the same. It called to her, soft but steady. She parked near the bar again, the one with the flickering neon sign. This time, she didn't walk past. The sound of live music spilled into the street, warm and rough. Her pulse quickened. Against her better judgment, she stepped inside. The room smelled of beer and dust, but it was alive. Voices, laughter, the hum of guitars. And then she saw him. On stage, a man with gray hair and a weathered face played guitar. It took her a moment to recognize him. Tommy Blake, her old bandmate. The sight hit her like lightning. His eyes met hers mid-song, and for a moment, the world stopped. He smiled softly, nodding toward an empty stool on stage. Patricia froze. Every instinct told her to run, but her feet stayed planted. When the song ended, Tommy walked to her, grin wide. "Didn't think I'd ever see you back in this town." His voice carried years of stories. Patricia laughed nervously. "Guess I took the long way home." The crowd buzzed around them, unaware of the history standing in that dim corner. Tommy asked if she still sang. She shook her head quickly. "Those days are gone." But the lie tasted bitter. Before leaving, Tommy pressed a small card into her hand, an open mic invitation. "If you ever feel like reminding the world who you are," he said. Patricia didn't answer. She walked out into the cold night, her heart racing faster than it had in years. She looked up at the Nashville sky, where 1,000 lights shimmered like memories, refusing to die. Somewhere between fear and longing, she realized, the music had found her again. The house was quiet when Patricia returned that night. Lily was asleep, her school books scattered across the kitchen table. Patricia walked softly through the hallway, her fingers brushing against framed photos. Megan as a child, Lily as a baby, ghosts of laughter frozen in time. Then, in the attic, she found it. The old guitar case. It was covered in dust, its leather cracked from age. Her heart pounded as she unlatched it. Inside, the strings were rusted, the wood dull. but it was hers, the same guitar that had carried her through barrooms and heartbreak. She sat on the floor, holding it like a lost friend. For a long time, she didn't move. Her fingers trembled as she tried a chord. The sound was thin, broken, but it was their whisper of the woman she once was. Tears filled her eyes before she even realized she was crying. Memories rushed back in fragments. Her first performance, the roar of applause, the sting of betrayal. Downstairs, the wind pressed against the windows. Nashville slept beyond the walls, unaware that a quiet resurrection had begun. Patricia played a second chord, and then a third. Her hands remembered what her heart had forgotten. For the first time in years, she sang. The voice was rough, softer, but it was real. It cracked on the high notes and trembled on the low ones. But it carried truths, something her younger self had never understood. She stopped halfway, covering her mouth as if afraid of being heard. In the doorway stood Lily, sleepy-eyed, watching. Patricia froze, guitar still in her lap. For a second, neither spoke. Then Lily whispered, "That was beautiful." And just like that, a tiny bridge was built between two lonely hearts. Patricia smiled through tears. "Go back to bed, sweetheart." But when Lily left, she kept singing, softly, like a prayer. Somewhere deep inside, the music had found its way home. The following afternoon, Patricia returned to the bar where she had seen Tommy. She told herself it was just to thank him, nothing more. But as she walked in, the warmth of the room wrapped around her like an old melody. The smell of beer, the creak of the wooden floor, the sound of laughter, it was all painfully familiar. Tommy was there, tuning his guitar, a smile lighting his weathered face when he saw her. "Didn't think you'd come back," he said. Patricia laughed nervously, shrugging. "Guess I was just nearby." The lie was easy, but her heart wasn't fooled. They talked about the old days, late nights, cheap motels, and endless songs. The memories felt lighter now, less cruel. Tommy mentioned an open mic happening that weekend. "No pressure," he said, "but I'd love to hear that voice again." Patricia shook her head quickly. "That voice retired a long time ago." Tommy just smiled. "Voices don't retire, they rest." He played a few chords, inviting her silently to join in. For a heartbeat, Patricia almost did, but fear wrapped around her throat like wire. She stood up instead, whispering, "Maybe another time." Outside, the sky was turning gold, the city glowing with the promise of evening. Patricia walked slowly, her hands trembling. The sound of Tommy's guitar followed her out, chasing her shadow down the street. It felt like the past was calling, and she was almost ready to answer. When she got home, Lily greeted her with curiosity. "Where were you?" Patricia hesitated. "Just somewhere I used to know." Lily studied her face but didn't press further. There was something new in her grandmother's eyes, something alive. That night, Patricia dreamed of bright lights and the echo of applause. When she woke, her heart was racing. The dream felt too real to ignore. Saturday arrived, heavy with decision. Patricia sat at the kitchen table, staring at Tommy's invitation. Her hands shook slightly as she folded and unfolded the paper. The words "open mic night, no pressure" mocked her courage. She wanted to go. She was terrified to go. Lily bounced into the kitchen, humming. "You should sing, Grandma," she said, her voice light. Patricia forced a laugh. "I'm too old for that." But Lily tilted her head. "You didn't sound old last night." The compliment hit deeper than Patricia expected. Still, she changed the subject, retreating behind dishes and small talk. That evening, she decided to stay home. She turned on the radio to drown her thoughts, but then Lily, in secret, uploaded the video she had recorded, the one of Patricia singing in the attic. She titled it "The Voice That Time Forgot." By morning, everything changed. Patricia woke to dozens of messages on her phone. Old friends, strangers, even small-time reporters. Everyone wanted to know who she was. The video had gone viral overnight. Her voice, raw and broken, had touched thousands. She felt dizzy, staring at the screen. The comments were full of love and nostalgia. Where has this woman been? Her pain sounds like hope. Patricia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The world had found her again, without permission. Lily appeared at the door, guilt painted on her face. "I just wanted people to hear you," she whispered. Patricia took a long breath, torn between anger and awe. Finally, she smiled softly. "Well," she said, "I guess the world was listening." Somewhere deep down, the fear began to loosen its grip. By Monday, the whispers had spread across Nashville. Coffee shops played her video. Local stations mentioned her name. Patricia Moore, they said, the lost voice of Nashville. She hated the phrase but couldn't deny the strange thrill it gave her. The city that once broke her was humming her tune again. Tommy called first. "So," he said, half laughing, still retired. She could hear the smile in his voice. Patricia rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her grin. Guessed not entirely. He invited her to meet at the bar again. This time, she didn't hesitate. When she arrived, the room erupted with applause. People recognized her from the video, some even from the past. She felt small and overwhelmed, but Tommy's steady gaze grounded her. "They loved you then," he said. "They love you now." Across the room, another face caught her attention, a man in a leather jacket, older, but unmistakable. Her former producer, the one who'd promised the world and left her broken. He raised a glass, half smiling. "Long time, Patty." Her stomach turned. The past wasn't done with her yet. That night, she walked home in silence, the city lights blurring through her tears. Part of her wanted to run again, to pack her bags and disappear. But another part whispered that maybe this was her moment to reclaim what was stolen. Lily met her at the door. "You were amazing," she said. Patricia hugged her tightly, the kind of hug that speaks 100 apologies. For the first time, she felt something she hadn't felt in decades: belonging. Still, in the distance, the ghosts of Nashville waited for her to decide. Would she sing again, or let fear take the stage one more time? The confrontation came sooner than expected. The next afternoon, Patricia met Tommy for coffee. They talked about the video, about music, about second chances. Then Tommy asked the question she had avoided for years. "Why did you quit, Patty?" The words hung heavy between them. Patricia's smile faded. She looked out the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. "Because I lost everything," she said quietly. "He promised to make me a star, and when I refused to be what he wanted, he made sure no one would play my songs again." Her voice shook. "I couldn't survive that world twice." Tommy's eyes softened. "You survived anyway." The words hit her harder than she expected. She realized he was right. She had survived heartbreak, obscurity, loneliness, and, somehow, she was still standing. That evening, Lily found Patricia sitting with the guitar again. The girl sat beside her silently until Patricia spoke. "There are things I never told your mother. Things I was ashamed of." She told Lily the truth, the contracts, the manipulation, the silence that followed. Lily listened, tears glistening. "You don't have to be ashamed," she said. "You just have to sing." Patricia laughed through her tears. "You sound just like your mother used to." For the first time, she felt the weight lift. The truth didn't destroy her, it set her free. A few hours later, her phone buzzed. A message from the producer. "The festival's next week. If you've got the guts, the stage is yours." Patricia's heart skipped. The choice was hers now. She looked at Lily and smiled faintly. "Maybe it's time the lights of Nashville see me again." The invitation lay on the table like a dare. A week until the Nashville Revival Festival, her chance to return to the stage that once defined and destroyed her. Patricia read the message again, her pulse uneven. Every instinct screamed to walk away, but something deeper whispered, "This time, it's different." Tommy stopped by that afternoon, his guitar slung over his shoulder. "So," he said, grinning, "what's the verdict?" Patricia laughed nervously. "You're insane if you think I'm going up there." He shrugged. "Then be insane with me." His faith in her was both terrifying and beautiful. Lily found them rehearsing in the living room later. Patricia hadn't realized she was singing until the girl clapped softly. "You sound alive," Lily said. Patricia smiled, blinking away tears. "I guess I am." The old house vibrated with chords that felt like forgiveness. Still, the fear lingered. At night, Patricia lay awake, imagining the lights, the eyes, the expectations. What if her voice broke? What if they laughed? But another thought followed, quiet and certain. What if they listened? The days passed in a blur of rehearsals and memories. Tommy helped her rediscover old songs, polishing them with years of wisdom. Her voice cracked less, her heart more. She began to trust herself again. The night before the festival, she stood in front of the mirror, holding her stage dress. It no longer looked like armor, it looked like home. She whispered to her reflection, "You've been silent long enough." And somewhere deep inside, that voice answered back, "Sing." The festival was alive with sound, guitarists, laughter, footsteps on wooden floors. Patricia waited backstage, her hands shaking, as the crowd roared for the previous act. The stage lights bled through the curtain, painting her face in gold. She hadn't felt this alive in decades. Tommy stood beside her, calm and steady. "You ready?" he asked. Patricia smiled nervously. "I don't think I'll ever be." He nodded. "That's how you know it matters." The MC called her name. and the applause began, a sound she thought she'd never hear again. As she stepped onto the stage, time slowed. The faces in the crowd blurred, just colors and movement. Her fingers found the strings, trembling at first. The first chord rang out, imperfect but true. Silence followed, then her voice rose, clear and fragile. Carrying the weight of 20 lost years, the audience leaned in, drawn to every word. Patricia sang not of fame or heartbreak, but of survival, of the woman who lost everything and still dared to sing again. Her voice broke halfway through, and the crowd held its breath. Then she smiled, wiped a tear, and kept going. When the song ended, there was a heartbeat of silence. Then the applause hit like thunder. People stood, clapping, cheering, crying. Patricia bowed her head, overwhelmed. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, not as a performer, but as herself. Backstage, Tommy hugged her tightly. "Told you," he whispered. "Voices don't die. They just wait to be heard." Patricia laughed through her tears. The noise of the crowd echoed in her chest like a heartbeat. That night, under Nashville's shimmering lights, Patricia Moore was reborn. The days after the festival passed in a haze of interviews, messages, and invitations. Patricia felt dizzy with it all. The world wanted her story, the pain, the silence, the comeback. But what she wanted most was peace. And music, in its simplest form. Tommy visited often, bringing coffee and quiet company. One afternoon, they sat by the river, watching the water shimmer in the sun. "You ever regret leaving?" he asked gently. Patricia thought for a long moment. "Every day," she said. "But maybe I had to lose my voice to find my truth." He smiled softly. "Then maybe it's time to stop running." The words hung between them, tender and real. Patricia looked at him, this man who had seen her rise, fall, and rise again. She took his hand, surprised at how natural it felt. That evening, they played music together on her porch. The neighbors listened from their steps, drawn by the warmth in her voice. Lily filmed them, grinning behind her phone. Patricia didn't mind. This time, it wasn't about fame. It was about sharing something honest. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Tommy turned to her. "You know," he said, "you're not the same woman who left this town." Patricia laughed quietly. Thank God for that. The night air was soft and full of promise. When he kissed her cheek, she didn't pull away. It wasn't a grand love story, just two souls finding harmony after years of silence. For Patricia, that was more than enough. Months passed, and Nashville embraced her like a long-lost daughter. Patricia used her earnings from the festival to buy the little bar where she'd once been discovered. The place was old, creaky, and perfect. She renamed it Second Verse. The first night it opened, local artists filled the stage. No contracts, no egos, just music and truth. Patricia watched from behind the counter, her eyes shining. Lily handled the social media, promoting new singers and dreamers. Together, they built something real, a home for voices that deserved to be heard. Tommy played there often, his laughter filling every corner. Sometimes, Patricia joined him on stage. The crowd loved her stories, the kind that came wrapped in melody and memory. Every song she sang was a thank you to the city that had broken and rebuilt her. One evening, Megan arrived unexpectedly, pale and quiet. Mother and daughter stood in silence before embracing for the first time in years. No words were needed. Forgiveness hummed softly between them, like the last note of a song. After that, Patricia began hosting a weekly open mic for women over 40. "Everyone's got a story," she'd say, smiling, "and it's never too late to sing it." The bar became a sanctuary for dreamers and survivors alike. Under the glow of string lights, she realized something profound. Her comeback wasn't about returning to who she was. It was about becoming who she was meant to be all along. And every night, when the music began, her heart danced quietly to its own rhythm. Years later, the city felt different, warmer, softer, alive. Patricia walked through downtown Nashville at sunset, the streets glowing gold. Her face had lines now, but her smile was bright. Everywhere she went, people waved. To them, she wasn't just a singer. She was a reminder that rebirth was possible. At Second Verse, the crowd gathered as usual. Lily, now a young woman, ran the stage with confidence. Patricia stepped up to the microphone one last time. "This song," she said, "isn't about fame or fear. It's about finding your way home." She began to sing. The notes rose and fell like prayer, carrying the echo of all she'd lived through. Her voice, aged and beautiful, filled the room with warmth. People wept quietly, holding hands. Every lyric was a love letter to her younger self, to her family, to Nashville. When the final chord rang out, The room stood in silence before erupting in applause. Patricia bowed her head, overwhelmed by gratitude. She wasn't chasing applause anymore. She was simply home. After the show, Tommy joined her at the bar. "Still think you're retired," he teased. She laughed softly. "Now I am, this time on my own terms." They clinked glasses, the sounds soft as memory. Outside, the city lights shimmered across the river like stars fallen to earth. Patricia looked up and whispered, "Thank you." Not to the crowd, not to the past, but to life itself, for giving her a second verse.